I see the book as a kind of window into Japan. I mean, I'm not claiming that I've kind of worked out Japan or worked out Japanese running, but it's just, it's a window. You get to look inside an aspect of Japan that perhaps you didn't know about and that, you know, you hadn't seen before. And just through my own experiences, hopefully you get this glimpse of Japan that's not definitive, but it is what it is. And also, you know, for runners, I think the whole idea that there's this kind of other world of running that they didn't know about that exists, it will be quite interesting. And particularly, you know, they're not messing about. I mean, these times, you know, they're running amazing times compared to the rest of the world, except for the Kenyans and Ethiopians. They really are, you know, they're doing something right for sure. It's not very well known that Japan has got this obsession with long distance running, and part of that reason is because the biggest races are all internal races. So they have these huge long distance relay races which are called ekidens, and they traverse quite large distances, 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers. The longest one is 1,000 kilometers around the whole southern island, Kyushu. And they're incredibly popular. I mean, they're the biggest sporting event of the year in Japan is one of these ekidens, and it's held on January the 2nd and 3rd. And it's a race that transcends people who like running. I mean, the whole country comes to a stop. Everybody watches it, even people who are not interested in running the rest of the year. And there's this real passion for running. Because these guys are training in Japan, they're running for Japanese teams, they're running the big races for them in Japan, nobody else outside of Japan knows about it. So it's almost like there's this like secret world of running in Japan. Before the running boom in the West and before the Africans started running, the Japanese completely dominated marathon running in the world. I mean, they were in 1965, something like, maybe not going to get this exactly right, but something like 11 of the top 12 fastest runners of the year that year were Japanese. And the next year it was 15 of the top 17. So they were dominating in a way the Kenyans dominate now, partly because they were one of the only countries that were running marathons on a large scale. There's this idea in Japan of Bushido, which means literally the spirit of the warrior. And there's a lot of, when I ask people why they watch ekiden, why they watch long distance racing, this word came up quite a lot. And the warrior spirit was a lot about, you know, perseverance, effort, but also about loyalty and sticking together and responsibility. And that's partly why they like the ekiden, because that kind of embodies all these facets of what they would consider a very honourable character, somebody who they would look up to. The Japanese system, almost exclusively, the runners go to high school, as they all do, and if they're good at running, they get in the high school team, and high school sport is taken very seriously, particularly running and ekiden. Then they go into the universities, and the top university ekiden teams are taken very seriously, and they're the biggest races in many ways. And then once you finish university, if you're a good runner, 99% of the runners will join a corporate team, and that's the professional system is a basic league of corporate ekiden teams, running teams. They do marathons as well, but their main focus is on the ekiden. And these are companies like Toyota, Honda, Konica Minolta. These companies are huge, so they've got thousands and thousands of employees, and so these employees will come out and cheer their team on, and their families will as well, and their extended families. I mean, if you know someone who works in Honda and you perhaps work for a small company, well, you'll support the Honda team. So it's a fascinating dynamic. And what's really interesting is that these guys are on a salary, because most runners, I'd say pretty much all runners in the rest of the world, are surviving on sponsorship money, appearance money and prize money. Now that's all good and well if you're running well and you haven't got an injury, but if you can't race, basically your livelihood, so there's a lot of risk there. Where these guys are on a straight salary, and a lot of them, and depending on the company, if they do end up getting a career-threatening injury, or even once they get too old and they retire or they lose form and they leave the team, they get given a job in the office, in the company office. So they carry on working there for life if they need to, if they want to, and that's usually an option. The kind of most famous runner in Japan right now is this guy called Yuki Karuchi, and he's the they call him the citizen runner, because when I said 99% of the runners join the corporate teams, well, 1 or 2 don't, and he's one of the few that doesn't. So he has a full-time job in the office of a school, and he trains, you know, in the morning like any other amateur runner. He's an amateur runner, he accepts no prize money, accepts no appearance fees, and yet he ran 13 marathons last year, and he ran something like 8 of them in under 2:10, which is a time, you know, apart from Mo Farah, no British guy has run in about 15 years, and he ran I think roughly about 8 marathons at that speed last year, or in 2013, the year I was there. So he's good enough. He makes the Japanese team. He was in the Japanese national team for the World Championships that year. So he's one of the top runners, and yet he's completely shunned the entire Japanese system. So he's very rebellious in that way, and people love him for it. You know, even though there's this idea that Japanese love to conform, well, they also love a rebel.